welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm grateful to you. I'm truly honored and feel privileged to be in your presence and have this opportunity to reach deep within myself and share with you lessons and inspirations of a lifetime. I'm Dr. Arnold Nerenberg. I'm 76 years of age. I've been a clinical psychologist for over 45 years. Today, I want to share with you a very important topic. We're sponsored by the Disciples of Honor. I want to share with you a very important topic called The Bully and the Bullied. The Bully and the Bullied. When I asked ahead of time for people in our audience, how many of you have been bullied in your lifetime, just about everybody raised their hand, including myself. Almost all of us raised our hands that we've been bullied at some point in our lives. Of course, the bullying we think of typically in schools, in elementary school, high school, junior high school. But it happens also in marriages. One spouse bullies the other. It could happen in the workplace from a co-worker or a supervisor. It happens on the roads where people get very angry and bully other drivers. We'll be focusing a lot today on what happens in schools. And it turns out when children at the age of 2, if they start showing anger to other children, and if that's not dealt with, they're more likely to become bullies later on. And as the children get older, when a person is very narcissistic, that is, they think the world just centers around them and their needs, and they can't take no for an answer. And to a narcissist, you only exist to serve their needs. You have no other reason for existence. So if a person is very narcissistic and impulsive, they're more likely to become a bully. When they don't get what they want, they can start trying to intimidate and bully people. It should be noted also that bullies tend to get anxious and depressed. But we see a lot of it we're talking particularly about children, particularly when young people are going into junior high school. A lot of it will start showing itself. It's an exercise of power, and very often children who are bullies have been bullied themselves. So it's what's called identification with the aggressor. They've had people aggress against them, bully them, push them around, intimidate them. And so they then do it to others. They identify with the aggressor that's against them, and then they'll start bullying other children. And you have the physical bully in the school, which is 35% of the school bullying is physical, where one person is actually hitting or pushing another child. And then the verbal bullying is 46%, and then you have the cyberbullying, which is by many considered the most dangerous. And we've seen in the media the suicides that have come out of it, where many people start bullying somebody on the internet. For some, it's a way to get respect. It used to be thought that bullies had low self-esteem, and they did this to build their sense of self-esteem up. But recent research shows that it's not that. And recent research is indicating that they're a lot of times popular kids. And of course, who's around, if the peers around are encouraging it, and stand by and watch this or even encourage the bully, it's likely to happen. So it's not just something that happens in a vacuum. It's part of a culture. So what we want to do is we're going to be talking about, when we go into the cure, we're going to talk about changing the culture of the school. I'm prepared to offer you a program to change the school culture where that won't happen. And let me give you a little heads up about it. There's no honor in being a bully. For a stronger person to intimidate a weaker person, there's no honor in that. And for the victim, there's no honor in feeling bullied and overpowered, and very often a feeling of cowardice that accompanies that. There's no honor in being the bully or the bullied. And we're going to be talking about a program of honor, bringing it into the schools. We should also note that bullies are more likely to go to prison at some point in their lives. So it increases the probability of going to prison. They carry on these aggressive behaviors. They were able to get what they wanted. They got recognition. They got attention. Became popular. They were considered cool, and they're more likely to go to prison. Now, the new research shows that actually a lot of bullies, it's cool. A lot of people think, "Oh, that's a terrible thing." We would say here, "Well, it's horrible to be a bully." Yeah, but in a lot of schools, junior high school or high school, that is considered very cool. This is a very cool guy, and he picks on somebody that. Typically, the victim is somebody that won't stand up for himself or herself, might have some real self-esteem issues, and just takes it. So you have, that's very cool for the many people. And a lot of times also, A lot of victims blame themselves. Also, bullies will tend to blame others. Bullies are blamers. Bullies are blamers. They tend to blame other people for whatever difficulties they're having in life. So we're going to be talking about a code of honor that specifically addresses that blaming. Now, bullies also have a sense of entitlement. They feel superior. Typically, they feel superior. They feel entitled. You know, if I want your lunch money, if I want your pen, or I want that book from you, or whatever I want, the person feels entitled. That's part of being narcissistically oriented, because the narcissist feels a strong sense of entitlement. Again, a narcissist feels you only exist in this world for one reason, to serve my needs. That's basically the orientation. If you're not serving my needs, then there's going to be retribution. So that dimension exists in many bullies. Bullies are blamers, but bullies tend to be very self-oriented. So they just it's hard for them to have compassion very often for others. Some bullies feel guilty or badly of what they do, but then they justify it. And a lot of bullies just don't feel any guilt. And so the victim, they feel that they're different. No one will stand up for them. It's more likely if they have some close friends around them, less likely to get bullied. But often they're a loner. They don't fit in, and so this makes them even more prone to being picked on, to being bullied. So these are some of the research findings I've just gone over with you about the bully and the bullied. And almost all of you are familiar with this. You've seen it in school. I've seen it in school. I've seen other people bullied. I can remember going back even to junior high school, seeing a guy taking another kid behind the steps somewhere and twisting his arm over there. And we all went on. I remember seeing in a lunchroom one bigger guy saying, "You made a pass at my girlfriend," made some accusation to this kid, and this was junior high school, and he slapped him in front of everybody. Just slapped him, and nobody stepped in. Nobody did anything. And then I remember a friend of mine sitting there. I said, "Well, I would never put up with that." So he was telling me I wouldn't put up with that. Meantime, this kid took a slapping in front of everybody. Some of these effects are lifelong. I mean, some of them are a lifetime effect. Some of these last for a lifetime for the victims. And, of course, what bullies don't realize, the bad karma that starts building up. You have people who have been victims of a bully who actually have thoughts later on of wanting to go back and kill that person. It doesn't leave them, so they have fantasy. They may or may not do it, but they have thoughts of going back. I know one case where a man was bullied in high school, and then he served in the military. When he got out of the military, he went back, found that guy, and beat him up. So it's not like people forget that. When a person's been bullied, it could stay for a lifetime. He came back after he served his stint in the military. He came back, found the guy, and beat him up. And as an adult, so something happens as a teenager, it didn't leave him. Some men will feel like they were cowardly for allowing themselves to be done. And you see movies like this. You see movies often where the kid bullied comes back, and he's a big guy now, and he confronts them, and he confronts the bully at a class reunion. I've seen it in a number of movies, that theme. And there's a reason it shows up in the movies, because a lot of us identify with that we were bullied and wanted to settle up. And it could shape a lifetime. It could actually shape a lifetime. I've been bullied myself when I was about 14, and I felt disgraced because I ran from this fight. And then I stood up. After that, I stood up to people I should never have stood up to, because I couldn't tolerate feeling cowardly again. So it was hard for me to forgive myself for running away from that fight. So I stood up to people where I should have backed down after that, and I didn't. And I even invited each of the two bullies to my house with the idea of attacking them. They didn't come to the house. And I took the title when I was 65 strongest man in the world for my age and weight, and believe it or not, it was related to still working through adolescent issues 50 years later, 51 years later, still working through that sense of cowardliness and having been bullied. And once I attained that kind of strength, I worked it through. So now I can say to the two young men that bullied me, I wish them well. But for a long time, I had other kind of thoughts about them. And a lot of men can identify with that, and women as well. How many who have been bullied have had thoughts of wanting to go back and settle up what happened when you were younger? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay. What is your fantasy that you have about going back?
Going back and beating them up.
You see yourself going back and beating them up, and actually what you do, punch them or wrestle them down or just throw them?
Yeah. Well, now as adults, we're like the same size, you know.
You're the same size. He was bigger than you then,
Older.
and he was older. So now that advantage is gone.
Yeah.
So you have the thought of going back. And when you think about that, I mean, we say it's just a fantasy, or is it something? Do you go to class reunions?
I do, but it's just a fantasy because
It's just a fantasy.
I already know karma got him back. He's like you said, they end up in jail.
He ended up in prison. That's one. It's a prognosticator for breaking the law and going to prison. And not that all bullies went to prison. That's not the case, but that happens. I mean, it is more likely than not, more than somebody who wasn't a bully, that he will end up in prison. Yes.
For me, I can't physically beat somebody up, and my situations have occurred around legal issues.
So you felt bullied around legal issues.
And so I am a member of like Legal Shield, and I basically have, taken steps to remedy certain things in the legal aspect.
So you've dealt with it legally, dealing with we felt legally bullied. What about yourself? You had some fantasies?
Well, I've been bullied by my brother.
You were bullied by your brother. That's common within the family. It could happen. Yeah.
Family. So right now, as this age, I confronted him verbally and says, why you bully me so much, fighting me back?
So you telling him he bullied you when you were kids, or he bullied you now? How old are you now?
52.
So you're 52, and how old was he when he started bullying you?
12, 14.
12, 14, he was bullying you.
And then we separated for, I don't know, more than 20 years, so I confronted him.
20 years you didn't see him.
I haven't seen him.
And then when you saw him, what did you say?
I told him why he was like physically, bullying me.
So you said 20 years ago, but 20 years ago you used to bully me. Why did you do it? You couldn't just let it go. It stayed with you.
Exactly, right.
Okay. And what did he say?
He says that, we're living that age of immature.
He said it was a time of immaturity.
Instead of immature.
Did he apologize, or he didn't apologize?
It's not that apologizing, because that's not the way he is. His reaction,
He didn't apologize.
Apologize by his actions.
By his actions.
Being a better person.
So he's nicer to you now.
Exactly.
That's how he shows
very,
it.
Very nice to me.
He's very nice to you now.
Very nice.
But 20 years ago he bullied you.
He
Yeah.
gave me cards when I was like in hardships.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So he showed you that his regret then for what he did to you back then. Yeah. Yeah. And then you were bullied when you were young. You're a big guy, but people aren't seeing you. But it's a very big man that you weren't even tempted. So you were bullied in school?
Yeah, it was usually older kids.
Older kids?
Always big, but
You weren't big back then.
yeah, but it was always older kids picking on me, trying to make a name for themselves.
They were trying to make a name for themselves and picking on you. And do you remember those guys that picked on you?
Yeah.
You remember them. Have you seen them in your adult life?
A few of them.
You've seen a few of them.
Actually, a few of them got on my bus at work.
So you're a bus driver, and a few of them have been on your bus.
Yeah.
And what was the feeling? Let's think of one of them. What was the feeling between you and that one that you're thinking of?
Well, me, it was shock. I guess it was like karma. They didn't look too good.
They didn't look good, so it was karma.
Hard, yeah.
And you're a big guy now. I presume you felt now you could take this guy. Was that correct or not?
Yeah.
You felt that. It wouldn't be a problem. Yeah.
It looked like life took them, so I didn't have to do anything.
So that took care. Did that take care of any of the scars of the bullying when you were younger? When you got to see how he looks now?
Yeah, I guess so.
It did take care of some of it.
I've always been a strong believer in karma.
You're a
Like I
believer in
said,
karma.
When I was a kid, I was bullied, and then you start fighting back, and when you feel that power, you start bullying too.
So you became a bully?
Yeah.
You became a bully.
Yeah. By then, that guy had moved on. So, yeah.
So you were bullied, and then you became a bully.
Yeah.
Okay, you became a. That's one of the part of the syndrome. A lot of it's called identification with the aggressors. People have aggressed against me, so you assume unconsciously you try to get their power, and then you bully weaker people. But let's take a look at what's involved. You take somebody, he's bigger or stronger, or she's bigger or stronger, and you're taking somebody weaker, smaller, younger, and hurting that person. We talk about physically or even verbally, or humiliating that person. And people think that's cool. So there's that laughter, but there's certain cruelty, and this is cruel. I think we could say, everybody, no matter what code of honor you have, that there's no honor in doing that. Would you agree? There's no honor in doing it. It's a dishonor. So the victim feels violated, but the bully has actually dishonored himself by picking on this weaker person. If the bully had picked on somebody bigger, stronger, and older, you might say, well, for whatever reason, you would say, well, it's not as bad, right? It's not. This person's bigger, stronger, older, tougher, and he stood up to him. And then, I don't even know if you call it bullying, but typically you're looking at the typical scenario is the bully is bigger, stronger, older, and when we're talking about school bullying, which is where a lot of the attention's going now in schools. Now we're going to go to the solution. We're going to go to the solution now. Do you see the scope of the problem? You see the scope, and it could shape a life, and you saw some adults here who remember back what happened when they were children. How old are you now? Yeah.
43.
He's 43, he remembers. 52, he remembers. 76, I remember. And there's a bond that's formed between the bully and the bullied. That person stays with us. And a lot of who we become becomes shaped by what happened then. Typically, we want to make sure it doesn't happen again. That person might start being a weightlifter like myself, or might start doing martial arts. I knew somebody who had been picked on when he was young as a small guy, and he became like a martial arts champion, but it was a response to being bullied. And then you used to see in the magazines when they would advertise Charles Atlas training, strength training, you'd see the standard at that point was the bully, two guys at the beach, and the big bully kicks sand in the face of the weaker kid, and that's the bully. And then that's the impetus for the other guy to start training and building himself up and coming back, and he seemed very muscular, and he's dealing with that guy, and the bully now is trembling in front of him because he's so much bigger and stronger. So I'm sure many champion fighters and weightlifters have been bullied. Like I said, I was part of what drove me to becoming a world champion, a power lifter and a bodybuilder. I took the title when I was 65 as the strongest man in the world, drug-free man in the world for my age and my weight, drug-free. And that was driven by a teenage trauma at 14 years of age. So I'm just using not only what I've seen with patients and the literature I've read and being a psychologist for 45 years, but I look at my own life, I can derive a lot of lessons. So what is the solution? I want to say this, that we can bring honor into the schools, an honor program, and such that the students, it could begin elementary school, but then really develop more in junior high school, and each one's being brought the information and knowledge at the level they can understand. So it starts in elementary school, goes to junior high school, really develop more, and then the honor program really full-fledged in high school. So that's doable. And it's a very specific program. And so as people value honor, there's certainly no honor in being the bully, right? No honor in being the bullied, and no honor of being a bystander and watching it. So you're watching this person beat the heck out of this little kid. What honor is there in that? You're just letting this go on. So you have three people who are being dishonored: the bully, the bullied, and the bystander. People watch around. It's like entertainment. I mean, they dishonor themselves by watching. They could go call the principal or step in themselves or call somebody in authority to help deal with this, but just sitting there and watching it. Yeah. So you have dishonor, the bully, the bullied, the victim, and the spectator. And I told you two examples from my own life where So that guy taking his arm, I can see it right now, was in junior high school, twisting his arm, taking behind the steps and talking some stuff to him. And I just walked by. We all walked by. They took him behind the stairwell where the teachers weren't seeing it. Then the auditorium, and then in the cafeteria in high school, where he was slapping this guy in front of everybody. I don't know where the monitors were, the school monitors or the teachers. Nobody stopped it. We all saw it. Nobody said a word, not one word, including myself. Myself, the people around me. And what effect? And so it's one thing to be bullied in private, but to be slapped by another boy in front of many people, boys and girls were there. It's one thing done in boys, but then also in front of girls. So he was slapped in front of them. I can kind of still see it in my mind's eye. And that victim who was bullied, if he's still alive to this day, I don't, unless he became a world champion fighter and he's an MMA guy, he's been in there just, world champion MMA, he might have worked it through. You would like to think that psychotherapy could, but I want to tell you something. I was so ashamed of my cowardice for running from that fight because some of the people saw me run. I told you afterwards I stood up to people because I couldn't bear the running. But then as a psychologist, you have to be in therapy and different things in my life. I was in therapy. I never brought it up in therapy. It was so buried in me and such a deep shame in me, I couldn't talk about it for 50 years. For 50 years. And remember the names, I ran, one was Tony, one was Barry. I ran from these guys and people saw me. And even though I was standing up for another person, my motivation for intervening, but then when they came at me and I went this way from the punches and then I just took off. There's a lot of ways to justify it, but in my mind I was a coward. So then after that I stood up to people and became a world champion powerlifter. But what I want to say to you is, well, that could be dealt with in therapy. And I'd been in therapy a number of times. Never brought it up. So was that boy who was slapped in front of everybody in our junior high school and Walt Whitman High School in Huntington Station, is he still carrying that? Did he ever deal with it therapy? I don't know. But I think a lot of people work it through by becoming fighters. Maybe they go to MMA, maybe they become boxers, wrestlers. In my case, it was weightlifting. Now, for me personally, I remember with one fellow, a friend of mine named Harold, we were about 11. We were out, we used to live in Hicksville in this Levittown. We would be at what was called the Village Green. There was this kid, maybe 10, we were 11. And he said to me, so this is how it goes. He said, you know how everybody always picks on us? Harold said to me, he says, yeah, we're going to take this kid up on top of that roof. We're going to beat him up. I said, all right. Yeah. I said, part of me didn't like the idea. So we made him climb to the top of this roof. Harold climbed behind him. I climbed behind Harold. We were up there. The kid was shaking on top of the roof. And he started making some comments to the kid. He started to talk a bunch of crap to sort of get the kid scared before he was going to attack him. And it just broke my heart. I mean, I was 11 years old, but it was horrible. I said, hey, no, wait a minute, we're not going to do this. No, we're not going to do it. You can go. We're not going to do this, Harold. So kid climbed down the ladder. We both came down. And later on, I would see him near his house, and you would think I was his best friend, that here he was about to get beat up and bullied by Harold and me, and I was the one that stopped it. But look what Harold said. He said, you know how the bigger guys pick on us? We're going to do it to this kid. So we were older, we were bigger, and there were two of us. And we were going to hurt this little kid. But Harold was mean. Harold had that meanness in him. I think maybe he been picked on a lot. I think his mother was hitting him a lot. But Harold was pretty mean. I didn't have it, to me, to hurt a weaker kid. Just wasn't in me. But it was in Harold. And I didn't object to it right away when he said, let's take this kid up on top of a roof. We had to climb up these steps and get on a roof. We were going to beat him up. The idea was to beat him up on a roof. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the kid could have fallen off the roof or who knows what. But it didn't happen. He came down. And that kid might remember to this day, with gratitude, because he didn't get hurt. Just that he was in that situation and I didn't know him, but when I saw him afterwards, he remembered me. And he may still have some memory of what happened, what almost happened to him. I remember one time my cousin and I, we were in the Bronx, we used to do for recreation, we throw rocks at windows. So we threw it at this tailor shop. And so we would throw rocks. I don't know if we might have broken the window. So this guy called, there was his gang around us. So he got the gang to chase us. So he chased us. My cousin Sammy and I started running. I hid behind a car and Sammy ran back to the house. And so they caught me. So they got me and they were going to bring me in. But one of the gang members said, well, let's just beat this guy up. And I don't remember what it looks like. It was dark. They got me. I was maybe 10 years old. And somebody in the gang said, no, let's just leave him alone. No, don't hurt him, leave him alone. So I always remember this guy said, leave him alone. And so they took me in, and the tailor was pretty angry at me. I don't know if he slapped me or what, and then had my mother called her. I don't remember what happened from there. But I remember I could have been beaten up by the gang, and this one guy said, no, let's not do that. No. He said that the tailor just wanted us to get him, and I guess he was going to pay them. I said, he said, we're getting paid to just bring him in. We don't have to hurt him. So here I am, 76 years old. Remember what happened when I was 14. Remember what happened when I was 10 in that situation. Remember what happened when I was 11 when we took that boy up. That's the kind of impact we're talking. So I don't have to talk about case histories and studies what I've seen with others. We're talking myself as a 76-year-old man. And so on my own best case history, I can look at what happened in my own life. So bringing honor into the schools, having disciples of honor. Now, the disciples of honor, there are 4 commandments, what I call 4 commandments of honor, or 4 self-commandments of honor. The first commandment is, I wish you well. I wish you well. So even elementary school could start learning that first commandment, I wish you well. It's 4 words, I wish you well. And when you take a pledge to be a disciple of honor, they're agreeing to repeat the 4 commandments 3 times a day. I wish you well. Second's a little longer, and so it might be harder for elementary, but I think junior high school, definitely high school, they can learn it. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and problems. And we could see that a bully tends to be a blamer. So he's saying, I've co-created. So it gets us away from blaming. And say, well, you did this to me, therefore I'm going to beat the heck out of you, or I'm going to take this from you, I'm going to humiliate you. So once you've got the idea and you're repeating this to yourself regularly, I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems, you take away a lot of the drive of the bully, because now he can't just be a blamer. You can't just justify your wrong behaviors because you're saying, I've co-created whatever it is I'm complaining about. And the third is, I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. So I've had things happen to me, it's going to make me stronger. So if whatever's happened in your life, whatever loss, in some way, you don't want that loss, but in some way it's going to make you stronger. You're going to gain wisdom, compassion, or make you stronger, whatever, even physically. And then the fourth is, I seek always to serve my highest values, or I choose honor above all else. Or if you believe in God, then the God you wish is my only wish. Now in the schools, they may not want to have that in there because it's so much. They might have it because it's just one option, or they don't have to use that. If they're concerned about bringing what looks like religion in, they could just use the 4th commandment is, I seek always to serve my highest values, or I choose honor above all else. And if they that other 4th commandment outside of the schools, certainly people could use, God, your wish is my only wish. But schools are pretty sensitive about that right now, so we would go with the other 2. When we bring it to the schools, it would be the 4th commandment would be one of 2. I choose honor above all else. In fact, I think for the school system, that's shorter. I choose honor above all else. So if I wish you well, I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems. I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship, and I choose honor above all else. Elementary school, they can be learning, I wish you well. Junior high school, they could be adding, I choose honor above all else. And then by high school, they can get the other 2. I take full responsibility for co-creating my reality and my problems, and I'm grateful for the power I gain from hardship. So to be training in what is honor. And then even in elementary school and junior high school, they can take the pledge. In fact, the pledge should be repeated. Right now we have the Pledge of Allegiance that we do. But then when they take a pledge to be disciples of honor, they're agreeing to repeat these 4 commandments 3 times a day for the rest of their life. So it goes this way. So imagine all the kids in the class. And then they could also do this at the beginning of the auditorium. So it's happening every day. People are taking reigniting the pledge. And when we have the assembly, so they're going, everybody raises their hand and say, as a disciple of honor. And they all go, as a disciple of honor. And I pledge myself. And they go, I pledge myself. For all the days of my life to the 4 commandments of honor, and I'll teach them to those I love. I will repeat them every morning, afternoon, and evening, and I will listen to myself recite them. Welcome to the brotherhood. Welcome to the sisterhood. So then you're creating a culture of honor. A culture of honor. And therefore, so when once you go, I choose honor above all else, there's no honor in being a bully, there's no honor in being the bullied, and there's no honor in being a spectator to the bully. So if somebody's being bullied, the other people have to stop them. And the one being bullied has got to really, I choose this, no, I'm dishonoring myself by accepting this. I'm going to stand up. I'm just going to take what's going to happen, but I'm not going to take this. I'm going to do what I have to do to stop this. Whatever that might turn out to be. But this will then, and then this will increase the self-respect, because we find that when people become disciples of honor, it increases their self-respect. In fact, we found 95%, and we've had 400 people take the pledge. We did one study, and then another. We did another interview of 177 people, and those 177 people, about 95% said they felt more self-respect. 95% more self-respect. So somebody who's a disciple of honor, junior, elementary school, junior high school, they can have more self-respect. So they're more likely to say, this, hey, I'm not going to take this. If you're going to punch me, whatever you're going to do it. I'm not giving you my lunch money, whatever. I'm not going to do it, or whatever. Or the person just starts screaming, or has a loud whistle, or something that just makes a huge noise, and whatever it is, whatever's going on. And of course, the other students who are disciples of honor, have come around and won't tolerate it either. It's the whole idea of, or come at the bully to restrain the bully. Even the bully is big and strong, you get 4 or 5 people holding or restraining the person, and people see, it's just, you just can't get away with it. You look at what happens in a terrorist attack. A guy comes in, has a semi-automatic gun, has many guns on them and clips, and just starts shooting people. So the first 4 or 5, well, shame on him, but to be able to shoot 100 is because everybody's running and going, God, let it be the guy next to me. I don't want to get shot. Whereas if we had also at a national level, the best thing would be to rush this person, because it's only able to shoot about 4 or 5 people before they get them. And those 4 or 5 in the front, they get shot first, but they would be shot multiple times if they ran. Those 4 or 5, when they run, are going to get multiple rounds in their back. It typically takes more than 1 round to kill you. It takes typically 2 or more rounds. So when people run, he could just take his time and just be shooting. The ones closest to him are still going to get shot first. So it's better if they're all, and why a terrorist is the ultimate bully. He's there hurting people. He's there deliberately to scare them. He's the ultimate bully. Comes in with unarmed people, children, men and women, and starts killing them. So if we have a national program to charge at the person, he can only shoot maybe 4 or 5, but we change the national character. But at the other end of it, in the schools, we have an honor program where the children become disciples of honor, and that's going to change their whole character as in the workforce, as husband and wives, as just members of society. It'll change what's happening on the roads, because look what's happening on our roads. We have 41,000 deaths a year on the roads, 29,000 due to aggressive driving. A lot of it's due to angry driving. There's certainly no honor in one person flipping another off and beeping a horn at the other drivers. We interviewed 1,500 people. We found 53% of Americans have an angry driving problem, or they show anger to other drivers 2 or more times a year, flipping them off, beeping their horns at them, retaliating by cutting them off, tailgating them to retaliate, or slamming their brakes on to teach a tailgater a lesson, and so forth. Certainly no honor in this. So as we have a culture of honor in the schools, that'll bring a culture of honor to our roads. And right now, we're losing 29,000 Americans due to aggressive driving a year. So that means in 3 years, we lose more Americans than we did in the Vietnam War, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, terrorist attacks, and natural disasters put together in the last 3 years. And it's all an extension of dishonor, of people dishonoring themselves and one another on the roads. So as we create a culture of honor, we'll take care of the bullying in the schools, take care of the bullying that takes place on the roads. You look at cyberbullying, a lot of times you don't even know the person. On the road, same thing. You don't know the person, they don't know you. Presumably you're not going to see each other again, which is not always true, but generally true. And it's anonymous. Because one thing you need to know, that within the human psyche is an urge to release our aggression on anonymous others when we feel justified. So in warfare, we kill people, we say they're the bad guys, the enemies, we don't know them, we shoot them, we feel justified because they're the bad guys. And cyberbullying, same thing. We don't know the person, or they don't know us, they don't know who's sending this, typically. Although sometimes we do know who the cyberbully, but a lot of times not. And children becoming, get so humiliated, they end up killing themselves. So this whole realm of cyberbullying, wasn't there when I was a kid. We didn't have the internet. So it was mostly physical bullying and then verbal bullying. Now with the cyberbullying, you hear of suicides going on over that. So the victims, if it's prolonged, you start seeing the signs of withdrawal and a sadness that's coming over. And again, the symptoms on the victim could last a lifetime or many years. In my case, it stood with me for 50 years, but helps shape who I am as a powerlifter, as a bodybuilder, as a human being, as somebody who understood how dangerous it is to tolerate it. I mean, I came to understand how dangerous it is to allow yourself to be a victim, and just under no circumstance to tolerate it myself. Absolutely not. It's just a horrible feeling. So we now could take this into the schools, bringing the honor program into the schools. Very simple program. 4 commandments of honor. The first commandment starts in elementary school. You can add a second one in junior high school, and the other 2 in high school, so you get the 4, and it's repeated on a regular basis. An honor program right from the beginning, as a way of dealing with the problem of the bully. Now, then it carries, then you have better citizens. And look what that'll happen in marriage. Domestic violence, I mean, that's tremendous. A bully, historically, it's been the man beating up the woman as a bully and intimidating her. Now, of course, you have sometimes the women sometimes will bully their husbands verbally, and now he's reluctant to hit her because he can go to prison. She could, say all kinds of things to him and not go to prison. So you have now husbands being bullied verbally, and before you had a lot of men physically bullying their wives. So once you have a culture of honor, we can transform this country, and then go to other nations and transform them, starting in the schools. So this will do it. This will transform the culture. This will transform the family life. It will transform our roads. And it's a very simple system. You've heard the expression, let's make America great again. I say, let's bring honor back to America. I can't even say let's bring honor back. I might even say we really totally had it, because let's bring honor to America. Let's bring honor to America. Let's bring honor to the world. As disciples of honor, this is doable. It's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood of honor. So it's not, and it doesn't. Nobody's going to say, "Hey, this is against my religion." Nobody. You're going to say your religion is not to wish somebody well. You're going to say your religion is not to take responsibility. Your religion is to blame others. No, every religion talks, don't blame. All religions teach wish others well. All religions teach to find something to be joyful in adversity, and find the jewels in whatever's going on in life, find the deeper meaning. And to choose honor above all else. There's not one religion or philosophical system, or any atheist, there's nobody who will say, you know what, this is wrong, don't teach that to my child. And having demonstrations, don't teach our children honor. Can you imagine that? It's impossible. Even the people who say don't bring up God in schools, separation of church and state, we're not bringing, God's not mentioned in these. We have one variation that is, but we're not bringing that to the schools, public school systems. We're using that choose honor above all. Nobody's going to say, I will pull my children out of that school if you teach my child those 4 commandments of honor. Nobody. No normal person. Nobody's going to say, this is against my religion, this is against my philosophy. This is not how I want my child to be. I want my child to be a moral lowlife. Who's going to say that? You're trying to raise my child up morally and with honor? No. I want them down in the gutter. I want them low. Who's going to say that? What school teacher, what principal, what superintendent of a school district is going to object to it? What legislator? Who's going to be able to go to Congress or go to the council members in their city and complain that you're bringing honor into the school system? Is that possible? Is that? Can any normal human being object to that? So we have a system, which it's taken me 45 years to develop this, and we've got plenty of empirical research on the power of this. We interviewed close to 400 people who said as soon as they took the pledge, they felt good. It was 99%. 99% said they felt more hope, and 95% said they feel more meaning in their life. So we've got plenty of research to back this up, plus my 45 years of clinical experience in doing this. So you need to think, well, what are you willing to do? We have this DVD we're going to be offering. We're going to upload it. We're going to offer it as a public service from Disciples of Honor. And just put this out there and offer it. So when you see it, and you see it online, just pass it along to others, and hopefully it'll get into the right hands where it's instituted, bringing honor into the schools. I want to get some of your comments and questions, and I'm going to respond to that. But the mic won't pick you up, so I'll repeat, whatever you have to say, and then I'll answer your comment or question. What are your thoughts on this?
I think freedom of speech is great, but sometimes we have to be able to not discriminate of denominations of any religion. We just basically focus on the right thing to do is the right thing.
Right, we're not going to focus on any religion. Person could believe in God or not believe in God, because this honor goes across all, whether a believer or a non-believer. Exactly, absolutely. So we're not going to run into that issue when we're bringing honor in there. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Kimberly, what are your thoughts about the program?
I think it's a great program.
You think it's a great program?
When I was younger, we had people that came in and talked about outsiders coming in, like maybe from the police force, and showed pictures of drug addiction and how it changed people's lives. And that made a huge impression on my life. So
when they brought police in showing what happened to drug abusers, it made a big impression on your life, yes. Outside people coming in.
So if you were to go to the schools, I think it would have a big impact, basically because of who you are.
So bringing this to the schools, it could be you. You could just say to your principal, the superintendent, you're going to see the upload on this, and say, here's digital form, just passing this along. You'll be seeing it, and you can find out from Phil, my secretary, what the link is, and they take it wherever you want to go. Phil will give you the link. It'll be up next week. What are your thoughts about the program?
I kind of would have liked it when I was.
You would have liked that. I would have loved it too. You would have liked to have had that when you were in school.
I grew up East LA area.
In East LA. I grew up.
Being a white person in there, I got bullied.
You got bullied for being a white person, but a lot of people were bullied who were whatever race.
My mind to get me through it, and I'm here now with no problem.
Yeah. Yes.
I grew up in East LA too, and I was Latino, and I got bullied.
You were Latino when he saw. Yeah, I think it was pretty widespread.
It was really rough.
It was rough.
growing up.
Yeah.
Even your people you thought that were your friends, that you hung out with them for one weekend, and then the next weekend they're stealing your gold chain that your mom gave you. And
So your friends would be taking things from you and then
they're-
trying to intimidate you.
Yeah, they're part of the bigger gang in the neighborhood, and you have to.
So there was intimidation and bullying from the gangs.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we're bringing on. So what is your thought about bringing honor into the school systems?
I think it'll be a great plan.
You think it's a great plan?
I have a daughter right now, 13-year-old. I got a 6-year-old.
You have a 13 and a 6-year-old. You like those schools to have this. Well, you can go to the principal and say, we've got a program for it.
Yes, it's the thing is, I even have a 22-year-old that he was a big, stocky guy. I had him doing push-ups since he was 6 or 7. So he went into junior high and high school looking all big, but his mind was still not developed. So they'll get a feel for him, and then they'll start.
So even though he was big, they still knew they could overpower him mentally.
Yeah,
So they would pick on him.
mentally.
Yeah. What is your thought of bringing honor into the school systems?
I think it's a great program.
You think it's a great program?
I think will help the next generation.
Help the next generation.
We have been through that. We know how to handle. We are here to cope with it, but I think they are vulnerable to.
Well, keep in mind it'll help. You're saying that it's going to help the next generation. Well, let me tell you something. When the children at school, and honor is being important to the school, my generation and your generation will benefit because they'll take honor back into the home. Because right now, they're not honoring the parents. They're not honoring the teachers. And they're going to get, let me tell you, once they have honor towards the teachers, they'll get a good education. It doesn't matter if the roof leaks, they don't have computers, but if they respect the teacher, they'll get a good education. And right now, that's not there because they didn't even respect their own parents. So when we bring honor into the school system, it's going to help transform also the family life, but also affect the quality of education, because when you don't respect your teacher, you're not going to learn from that teacher. If you have that respect and the roof is leaking and you don't have computers, you still can learn tremendously from your teacher, tremendously. So this is going to solve a lot of issues at a learning level, at a family level, when we bring it into the school. And you know what? Those commandments, they'll be bringing it home to their parents. And the parents will be asked, do you want to take the pledge to be a disciple of honor? Yeah, the Parents Association will be also the parents taking it. What are your thoughts about bringing honor into the school?
Oh,
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
You think it's a good idea?
The generation that's coming out now, all the things that's happening, yeah, they need that.
So we can bring it in. My generation needs, not just
Oh, yeah.
my
It's
generation
really
needed.
bad now.
You know, people think it's gotten worse. I don't know that it has. I mean, in the 50s it was pretty bad. I mean, I was born in 1941, and I was in high school in the 50s. It wasn't good. I don't know that it got worse. You might think it got worse. I don't know that it did. Yeah. Each generation complains about the new generation. They say, well, we had it this way. Now look at them. They're just brats, all brats. It wasn't great when I was a kid. Absolutely. Well, it's been a privilege. I'm glad to have had this opportunity with you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful truly for your presence. Thank you. Thank you.